Hello, everybody. I'm recording this on a Saturday because I want to get my thoughts out about therapy now. But this will all be released to YouTube and to the podcast world on Monday because I'm giving in to the fact that that is when it is easiest for me to release episodes. Um, I've got a Diet Coke, so there are going to be a lot of pauses while I guzzle down the nectar of the gods. And I do have actual thoughts about therapy. But first, for those of you who are watching this via YouTube, today is the first time that I have put on a face of makeup for recording and put on a little bit of jewelry with the knowledge that I am on camera. And to be honest, it feels a little disingenuous. It feels like I'm putting on a character or like I'm sinking into my work persona where it's, hi, yeah, I'm happy to help you. And my voice is half an octave above my actual register. And like I can feel that sort of customer service work impression going on. And that feels really, like I said, disingenuous against what this podcast actually is. Because this podcast and this YouTubing, as in therapy, it's the place where I feel like I can remove those masks and step away from those roles and sink down into my natural voice register and, be more real than I might be on a day-to-day basis. And yet, despite having put on a face of makeup and having put on jewelry, my hair is up in its off hours out of my face shenanigans, and I'm wearing sweats and a hoodie that I've owned since college. So I'm kind of sitting in this weird dichotomy of fantasy and reality, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But my face does look real good, so there's that. Also, I put on some new fake nails last night. They're longer than I usually buy them, but I kind of like these. I've found over quarantine that putting on makeup and having my nails done, whether it's press-ons or just having nail polish on, it's a weird form of self-care. I feel more professional and more with it when I'm wearing makeup and when my nails look good. So there's that. Like in some ways, putting this face of makeup on is like waking up. It's like assuring myself that, yeah, I'm competent and confident and I can do whatever it is I plan to do today. It's a Saturday. I don't plan to do anything. But yeah, at the same time, full face of professional makeup juxtaposed against sweats and a hoodie. I'm living in a weird space right now. Happy Saturday. Okay, that weird makeup rant over. Now let's talk about therapy. I just got out of therapy about an hour ago. Yeah, about an hour ago. So all of my thoughts are still very fresh. In the therapy today, I was talking to my therapist about some shit that's going down and is about to go down at work. And a lot of it has issues of confidentiality. So I couldn't talk about the specifics in therapy, and I can't talk about the specifics now. But there's a thing coming down the pipeline. And we're in the point where all of the hypotheticals and all of the ideas are about to have to become reality. And I don't think, and Shauna does not think, and several other people within the organization do not think that we are ready to go from the big picture, great idea, down to can we practically and physically make this work? So that has been causing a lot of stress for Shauna, especially for the last 6 months. And it's now causing me a lot of stress because this is the part where Shauna and I are going to come in and we're going to have to start executing things. And right now, we don't have enough information to execute. So I have this sinking, sneaking suspicion that all of this is going to come down to the wire. And it's going to be like the last 2 months before the end where we're going to have to be like panicking and running around trying to make all of this work on deadline. And part of this had me panicking and wondering, am I still going to have a job when this is complete? Because my ability to do my job is starting to look pretty compromised. So that's a stress that I didn't need. And I was talking to my therapist about this, like in terms of I'm feeling really helpless. I'm feeling like I'm not being set up to succeed, and neither is Shauna. And a lot of her job stress is going to spill over to me because I am her right hand. We collaborate more than we are supervisor and employee. So what affects her often affects me as well. And I'm very much feeling like this transition is not going to go well. There's a lot of practical details that have not been considered and were not considered prior to this rapidly appointing switch point between idea and okay, implement. And I'm really wondering, has anyone thought this through? Are we actually going to be able to execute? And that's not a really happy mental space to live in at all. So that's what I was focusing on in therapy, is this feeling of there's so much information right now that I don't have, officially or unofficially. Because, anytime a leadership team tries to keep things strictly confidential and really quiet and on the down low, everybody knows what's going on. Like, the only difference is the amount of information, of verified information that people have department to department and even person to person. So everyone in our building has a good idea of what's coming. What we don't have is clear communication, transparency, and concrete details to work with so that we can successfully implement this thing that's happening. So there's all this stuff going on that is out of my control, but that is going to directly affect my life and my livelihood. And I'm sitting here with all of this stress and all of this uncertainty, and there's so much that I can't do about it. So Shauna and I were talking about this earlier this week, and I was talking about this again in therapy, and I came to the realization that, you know what? As nice as it is, and as verifying, what's the word I'm looking for? Affirming as it is to share my stress and to have someone share their stress back with me so that we share the stress, we're on the same page with where we are, as nice as it is to have that, as affirming as that is, as helpful as it is to know that it's not just me hamster wheeling, like this is actually the level of stress that we're going to be existing in. As helpful as that is, it doesn't actually help me. It doesn't help me to get rid of the stress. It doesn't help me to get to a better place. All it does is put me in this hamster wheel with another hamster next to me. So we're still spinning, but we're still stuck in that goddamn hamster wheel and there's no getting out of it. And the more therapy I have and the older I get, the less able I am to be not content, but to be able to exist inside that hamster wheel. I want to take all of that stress and all of that uncertainty and I want to do something with it. And right now, with this work situation, there's not that much that I can do. So it's really uncomfortable right now to be living in this twilight zone where official things have not been announced, but everybody knows them. Communication has not been clear, and nobody has the information that they need in order to execute the things that we're going to have to execute. Hello, cat. Just ballerina posing your leg up there as you clean yourself. That's nice. So, yeah, I'm sitting in this space, and my therapist very helpfully pointed out, okay, well, so how do you have any ideas for how to take all of this stress and uncertainty and do something productive with it? And it's not that sort of toxic positivity thing of turn that frown upside down, there's always a silver lining, and you can do something good. It's not that. It's more my therapist asking me, what can you do to get that stress out of your head and put down somewhere so that like it's all written out or it's all discussed, but you're not actively carrying it on your shoulders. And the idea that I came up with was, okay, well, a lot of the stresses and worries that I have right now are related to practical questions. So I could make a list. I could sit down and I could write all of these anxieties out and turn them into actionable questions. Like, it's going to be a long list. It's going to be a very detailed list, but it will be like a list of questions and considerations that I need answered so that I can help execute the thing. And my therapist approved of that. She said, that's a great idea. So that is what I am planning to do. Probably not this weekend, but on Monday, is write a list. Get all of these questions out of my head, get them written clearly down on paper or clearly typed up in a Word doc so that all of those questions exist. I have everything out of my head and it can live on the paper instead of in my head. I have a therapist-approved coping mechanism. Yay! And this led to talks about my 5-year plan again. Because another thing that I was talking about was my new VP. I think I've talked about this before, but in case I haven't, my previous boss left us in April or May, somewhere in there. We had an interim CFO for a few months, and then we hired my current boss. So my current boss came in August, in the middle of the COVID quarantine, in the middle of the annual audit process. Like it was not a great time to onboard a new employee. Not that there's ever a good time, but you know. So the thing with my current VP, she has never seen us work in the old normal times. She has never seen us in a typical work week where we're balancing our classes with external rental, with regular space renters. She has no idea how we actually operate on a day-to-day basis when we're not stuck in quarantine. And that, I think, is a big problem because there have been times when she's asking us, what have you been doing? Do you have any work that you can share with us? And the answer is not really, because I can't rent the space out to renters. We don't have any classes in the building. Like my team in particular, we're in this weird limbo of there's nothing for us to do. And the things that you would like to ask us to do are not in our wheelhouse. Like we can't just rent out our student workers to other departments because they've not been trained in like data entry or the administrative tasks that you would like to farm out to them. That's not part of their job. They've not been trained in that. I don't think it's appropriate to ask them to do that. But it does leave them in this situation where we've got nothing for them to do, and that looks bad. So that's not great. And also because our team has never, since quarantine, been in the building with our new boss. So we've never done that kind of in-person analysis of each other. So I don't know how my new boss works. She doesn't know how I work. I don't know really what her actual communication style is. Like, I don't know if she's the kind of boss that I can go knock on her office door real quick with a question. Um, it's kind of a mess. And it's really frustrating at points because, you know, how can I prove the work that I'm doing unless like I write book reports about every webinar I attend or send like proposals for this is what we can do better. I find that frustrating busy work and I don't want to do that. But there are times when I'm not sure how else to prove to my boss that I am working throughout the week and not just, I don't know, binging whatever YouTube thing catches my eye that day. Now, to be honest, I do sometimes have time or I will just sit and binge watch YouTube for a while. But I am doing things. I am doing so many things, and I want to be able to prove that to you, but it's COVID and you don't know what we work like, and it's frustrating. Everything about work right now is just so frustrating. And I think what's coming is an expectation that I will be working from home at least a couple days a week, possibly primarily working from home. And in some ways, I'm fine with that. That's great. I have been, I've been productive working from home. And I think that once we get to the new normal, I think that's going to work fine. But yeah, right now there's so much uncertainty at work and there's so much stuff that's up in the air and it's all stressing me out and there's no easy escape valve for that pressure. And there's nothing that I can really do about any of it other than start that list of questions and concerns. I don't know if those questions and concerns are going to be answered. I don't know if there is any use in bringing up these issues that I don't know if they're going to be resolved, but here we are. I don't like feeling helpless. I don't like feeling like there is nothing I can do, that I am at the mercy of other people. I hate that feeling. So trying to claim some sort of agency is rough. And it's, in a sense, it's rougher, whatever. It's harder right now because of the work at home aspect. I'm finding it difficult to leave work at work. When I was working in the office primarily, it was easier because I was physically removing myself from the office and coming home and closing the door on the outside world. It was this very clear delineation of, okay, the workday is over. I'm at home now. This is my de-stress time. I'm in a different place. It's harder to do that when I'm working at my dining room table and it's 30 feet from my bedroom and 15 feet away from my armchair. Maintaining that boundary is significantly more difficult now. And I'm coming up with little rituals throughout the day. One of the most useful is that when I'm done with work for the day, I close my laptop and I go take a nap. And when I wake up from the nap, then it's, okay, workday is done. Now we're at home and this is the de-stress time. But I'm still finding some difficulty in making those clear delineations between work life and home life. Things like I have a cat on my table right now who is keeping me company as I record this. That's not a thing that would happen if I was in the office. And, I'm surrounded by like my journal is here and crafting projects are there and there and there. And like I've got my fun colored markers, which is what I use to journal in. All these things that I don't actually have at work. And, the fact that I can see my armchair and I can see my bedroom door kind of makes it harder to keep my focus on, okay, this is work time. So my therapist was asking me, okay, well, what can you add to your rituals to give you that clear transition time between getting up in the morning and sitting down to work, or stopping work for your lunch hour, or transitioning from work to home? And the nap helps, but my therapist also said, why don't you add yoga? Because another thing that I mentioned is I'm so aware right now of how stiff and stressed I am. And like my body is holding on to that tension and I have no way to release it. And I had to give up my yoga routine when I broke my ankle back in May. But the ankle is essentially healed now. So I am actually able to do the yoga. So the suggestion of why don't you pick your yoga routine back up and do some yoga before you take your nap, or do some yoga in the morning before you come to work. I really liked that suggestion. I'm going to have to consciously add that in. Dead air as I just kind of process everything that I said. So yeah, the non-specific actionable takeaways that I'm getting this week are I need to find ways to remove the stress from my head, have it somewhere so I can reference it if needed, but get it out of my head so it's not living on my shoulders. And then I need to find additional ways to help me mentally transition between the parts of my day. I think those are two really good action items to work on this week. So with that, before I go, I'm going to also make a plug. I have a blog now, which is a thing that I've been thinking about doing since somewhere back in the middle of season 1. So I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I finally put the blog together. I will have a link to the first blog episode is not the right word for a blog. It's blog post. I'll have that on my Facebook page. I'll put a link in the doobly-doo in the YouTube. Thank you, John Green. And until I see you next week, stay safe, stay sane, and find a way to get the stress out of your head. Whether you're like me and you need to sit down and make a list of all of your stress, or if it's you have a dance routine to shake all of that stress out of your body, let's find a way to get it out of our heads this week.